Okay, so once again, if you want to clean out, so use that to clean it. And we can do the same thing here as well. All right, so now let's get into basic OR data structure. Okay, so here we have, this is where we are. Okay, so we're going to look at vector, matrix, array, list. So there are at least four. But vector is the most basic data structure, okay? The simplest data structure, and we will be using vectors all the time. Okay? And all the elements in that vector has to be of the same type. Okay? You cannot mix and match. So if you have integer, everything must be integer. Everything must be character, or everything must be logical, and so on. So So if you have C is the most convenient way of creating a vector. So say 1, 2, 3, then a vector is created with values 1, 2, 3. Okay. So these will be double, right? Our floating point. If you want them to be integer, then you have to put an L. See, like, now let's say that you put an integer here and then 2 and 3, then what happens? Okay, you're mixing the data types. The first one is an integer, and the second and the third are not integers. Okay. Now if you do a class here, well, I didn't save it, so let's say that we save it as A7. Okay. And then say class of A7, you see is numeric, which is not integer. Okay. If they're all L. Okay. Well, I don't know. This still may say numeric because integer is it's integer. Okay. But what happened when something is not integer? Okay, so if you just do a 2, is not integer anymore, right? So when you mix data types, okay, and then if you do class of A7, so it becomes numeric. It's no longer integer. Okay. Because a vector has to be of the same data type, what C will do is it will convert everything to the least common denominator. Okay. An integer can be expressed as a floating point number. A floating point number cannot be expressed as an integer. So it will convert all the integers to floating point, and everything will be floating point then. Okay. Same thing happens. Suppose if you have lots of numbers and suddenly you have a character, right? Then what will happen? All the numbers will be converted into characters. Because numbers can be expressed as a character cannot be expressed as a number. So this is called coercion. It will coerce the data into the most common type that all the values can be expressed. So if you say C, 1, 2, and then D and 5, right? So everything will be now, they're all coerced into characters. So if you have a logical value, okay, so now everything is going to be coerced into a character now. Let's make that 16. So true becomes a string true. This is not a logical true. Okay. 16 and yes. So vector, simplest data structure, the sequence of elements of the same data type. So basic type, it's also called atomic type. Atomic type means the type of the data. So that's what we call as atomic type. Okay. So here is how the elements of lower order coerced into the higher order. So logical sits at the bottom, integer, double, complex, and character. Okay. So that's our vector. So vector is basic data structure in R, and we use it for, you want to have a data set and you have column names, and you want to capture all the column names. You put it into a vector. And that would be a vector of strings. In the same way, if you have row names for a data set, and you want to put all the row names into your vector. So you put that into a character vector. Okay. And you have 5 variables, and you have mean of the 5 variables. You want to capture them into a data structure. You can put them into a vector, okay, and then use it for preparing your report. Yeah. Is there a difference between a vector and a row and a column of a data set?
The vector is a row and the vector is a column, right? That's what you just said?
No. What I said was, suppose if you have a data set, okay, and you have column names to the data set. Now, and then you have row names to the data set. Now, if you want to take all the column names, store it in a place, okay, and use it for preparing your report or something. So you can capture the names of the columns into a vector. Okay, so that's what I said. And similarly, row names, if you want to capture the row names for something, then we will be looking at examples of that, like that, in the later chapters. So vector is simply a list of elements, that's it. Okay, and they all have to be the same type.